welcome back to part 5 in our Truth About Building Strength Temple series. Today we're going to talk about the fire in your belly, the solar plexus. And this is really the region of our body that's associated with power, personal will, and personal power. So the organs and the muscles that are associated with this region of the body that fuels our ego are the diaphragm, the stomach, and the abdominal muscles. And this is an area that's very telling with regard to our emotions, our thoughts, our character, and our physical strength. And the reason why, part of the reason why they call it the solar plexus is because it really is the center of our bodies, the center of our being, and it's like the sun. It fuels the life, it brings life force into the body, the same way that the sun brings life force on the earth. It's really the dominant sympathetic stimulator of our autonomic nervous system, and it has so many associations in regard to our power, our energy. And someone who is very deficient in this particular area, it's very obvious because they have a lot of shortness of breath, they're very tight in the upper abdominals, and because of things that may have happened in life, but especially with the conditioning that we receive in school and society, you know, where we're constantly brought down, our energy is brought down, we're taught to sit down, be quiet, and our will is constantly being stifled. So that, you know, everyone can move along without any interruption by you and your ego. That area gets clenched, it gets shut down. So someone who doesn't have a very high, healthy self-esteem because they were told, you know, sit down, shut up, you're not that good, you're not that smart, you can't, which is essentially what that means, looks a little like bent over. They look a little empty or cold in this particular area. There's a pit in your stomach, and that's exactly where that term comes from. That term, a pit in my stomach, comes from a part of your soul that really that gives energy to all of who you are as a human being has been removed. There's a pit in my stomach. You're scared, you're nervous, you don't feel well, your breath has been shortened because of either something that you've seen or something that you've heard. So, or it's some way that you've been treated, you know. So this area, if it's really built up and it's healthy, or even if it's overexerting itself, shows itself as someone with a very big pot belly, extended mid portion of their body. They've got a healthy or an overly excited self-esteem. They feel very, very good about themselves. There's some people who become very brash and arrogant in their behavior. A normal person would have good posture, good breathing, and wouldn't necessarily exert themselves over people, but they have confidence and self-esteem. So, catabolic stimulation of this particular area to really, which it doesn't need that much, because like I said, it's really the seat of the sympathetic nervous system, but people who are very weak in the abdominals would want to spend some time doing some crunching exercises, any type of trunk flexion, especially aggressive trunk flexion, like if you take a medicine ball, you slam it on the floor, bang, bang, these type of things, even with like a cable, bang. Any type of crunching, V-ups, abdominal type exercises are going to stimulate that area, stimulate the catabolic or the sympathetic end of the nervous system, get you a catabolic response, which most of us are already doing. Heavy breathing is associated with this also. So if you're sprinting a lot, or you're doing high intensity interval training, sprinting up hills, anything that really gets you sucking air is going to be associated with stimulating or adding fuel to this fire in your belly. And that's why when I used to compete in strongman, I wouldn't get very excited before I would approach the implement that I'm about to lift. I'd walk up to the implement and I would just take 2 or 3 deep breaths, and then I would just approach the stone or the log and go after it. And it's because I was fueling this fire in the belly with air, with oxygen, with very excited or deep and aggressive breathing. The other way, the way that you stimulate opposite end of the spectrum here, or the parasympathetic end of the nervous system, and receive an anabolic response from this area is with relaxed breathing. And I don't mean slow breathing in that, like what I just described here is very aggressive breathing. I mean breathing that's full, deep breathing. If you ever notice when you're scared, or like I said earlier before, we've been conditioned to shut up, sit down, you can't, your breathing becomes very clenched and tight. Fear is associated with clenched, tight breathing, shallow breathing. I once heard that this has just been a primal response to us, or a leftover primal response from when we were hunters and gatherers, and if we noticed there was something that may come and attack us, or we were under pressure in some regard and we needed to be quiet, we'd stop our breath so we wouldn't make any noise, so like the panther that's walking by wouldn't hear us. So we stop our breathing, and we still do that. Like I said, it's a leftover response from when we had to survive in nature, but now when someone tells you you're not good enough, you can't, we perceive that, our nervous system perceives that in a fearful fashion, and it shuts down our breath. We immediately stop. So if you want to know how healthy you are, how you feel about yourself, or what's happening psychologically at a subconscious level in any particular situation, look at your breath. What is happening with your breathing? Are you still breathing deeply? Or are you clenching up? And oftentimes, and all the time when we clench up, we become overly sympathetic. Yesterday I took my daughter to a birthday party where it was like an arcade. And I haven't played video games in years, but we started playing this car game where, you know, it's a street car game. And as soon as I got on there, and because I wasn't used to the particular activity, I was holding my breath, I was clenched up, I was tight, and my performance sucked. The minute I stopped and became aware of what was happening with my breathing, I relaxed my shoulders, I took conscious deep breaths. It's one of the things, you know, breathing is an interesting thing because it happens on its own, but if we make conscious effort to support it, we can really manipulate what's happening in our entire nervous system, hormonal system. It's really one of the most powerful control mechanisms that we have. So we can stop breathing with poor fashion, except if we have weak power in this area that we're going to talk about in a minute, and really become mindful of our ability to breathe, or to open up our breathing, to relax our breathing. The other way to stimulate the parasympathetic end of the nervous system and get an anabolic response from this area is with anabolic energizers. A lot of you guys keep asking me when I'm going to show you guys all these exercises. Once this series is coming to an end, I'll make an offer and I'll show you exactly what all these exercises are. It'll either be in a book or a video series. And the reason being is I just don't have enough time to go over everything here. So the other thing that we've been talking about is what happens when this particular area becomes either damaged, and what does it look like when the power is weak or strong. So let's go over that now. Weak or tight abdominals, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be a sign of weak power in this particular area. Low self-esteem, a pit in the stomach, and emptying of that particular area. Breathing problems, people with asthma and allergies, shortness of breath, really poor posture that does not facilitate deep breathing. On the other end of the spectrum is strong. Someone who has strong power has strong, flexible abdominals. If you feel, especially the upper abdominals, if you feel the upper abdominals and it's not very tight or rigid, then you know that person's healthy in there. But if it's super soft, you know that you're talking about the other end of the spectrum. Strong but flexible abdominals, healthy self-esteem. And when I say that, I use the term ego lightly. I mean that you just have a sense that you can. And I think so many of us in our society, because of the conditioning that we receive in compulsory education, that our parents received and then beat us up with, is this idea of you can't, I can't. When you're a child and you're trying to do things, there's a constant cue to get down from there, don't do that, you can't, you're not big enough yet. And this is a very insidious form of mind control. We start to really think that, there are things I can't do. And we receive this type of conditioning all throughout school till we get to the point where most people today in westernized societies are living lives they hate. They've got jobs that they hate. They're in relationships and they hate that they hate. And the reason why is because they never felt like they could. So when you wanted to quit your job and start a career doing something you really love, someone said, well, you can't make any money doing that. You know, so for example, you're an accountant because you were told that you had to do that in order to live a productive life, or whatever the hell that means, but really in your heart, you just wanted to whittle sticks and make flutes. I don't know. But that's in your heart. You freaking loved it. But everyone said, you can't make a living do that. You can't. And you bought that shit. And it's happened over and over and over and over and over and over and over again to the point where we stop ourselves from doing anything that we're inspired to do. If you have a healthy fire in your belly, you live by the mantra of, fuck it, I can do it. You don't listen to what anyone says, and that I can comes from you. It comes from the fire in your belly, your self-esteem, your ego. Great resources on this particular topic. The abdominal brain, I'll put some of these down below. Very old books that are associated with the solar plexus and how powerful this particular region of our body is. This happens to be the one that I'm dominated by for multiple reasons. But anyway, it's a very exciting topic. I invite you to take some time and do a little bit more research on it, as well as everything that I'm talking about here about the Strength Temple. Resources are always at the bottom of this video. Talk to you next time.